Today's episode is for anyone who's exhausted, who's pushing, pretending, and trying to power through. Kirstin Carey dismantles the myths that your body is slowing down with age and shows you how to realign so that you have the energy you need to live longer, stronger, more energetic, vibrant years.
Well said, Kelly. You're going to get a lot out of this episode. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Fit Over 50 Life podcast. I am your host, Mark Patrick, and that lovely lady next to me, raise your hand, Kelly, in case everybody doesn't know you, is Kelly. She's my co-host. And Kirstin, did I get it right today? Okay.
You did.
Kirstin is our guest
you.
today. First and foremost, if you are here today for the first time, we are grateful for you. Make sure you hit the like, follow, subscribe. Anything you could do to help us build our channel, we can increase and the quality of life that you have, the health that you have. We're just on fire right now, looking forward to this interview here. So, Kelly, before I get too long-winded, would you mind sharing a little bit of intro? And then, Kirstin, I want to dive into your background and your story, and then we'll dive into how you help everybody. Let's do it.
Yes, I would love to. So today we're talking about how to align your body and your business for a more powerful, energized life. And our guest, Kirstin, is a former restaurateur, a corporate sales consultant turned business strategist, somatic mentor, and she's the host of The Frequency of Yes. And yes, she has a bulldog in the background who's sleeping so beautifully. But Kirstin has built multiple companies. She's coached hundreds of Gen X professionals. That's what we are, group. We are Gen X. And now she's specializing in helping people harmonize their body and their work life and how they can operate with clarity and alignment and energy. So your body knows what's going on. Kirstin is going to help us. So your body, your mind, your relationships are all going to show up so much better. So Kirstin, thank you today for helping us introduce a different gear for our body and our work life. We love the work that you do, and we know that our audience is really going to enjoy this conversation.
Good, and thank you. And I'm glad to be here. This is exciting. I love doing things that are Gen X related. We just, we think a little differently.
So
we do.
This is a really interesting topic. So maybe you could just tell everybody about your backstory. I'd love to hear what kind of restaurant you ran, and what made you shift to get into this field, and then we could dive into what the heck this is all about and how people can optimize their lives and really dial in and live healthier lives. So the floor is yours.
Great.
It's Kirstin,
question.
By the way, Kelly.
Kirstin.
I'm going to get it right.
So I actually started out right out of the gate from college, in my college dorm, doing marketing consulting for small businesses. And then I started getting hired to do high-level speaking engagements for big companies. And they brought me on to work with their highest-level people to make them more effective in front of audiences and sales and communication. So I was working for companies like Verizon. Like I was a line item for Verizon and UPS and Aramark. And by the time I got into my 30s, I wasn't feeling great. But, I pushed through because that's what you do, right? You don't stop. You walk it off and you keep going. And I started gaining weight and I was tired all the time. And there was just a lot of things. And being a former athlete, you're like, can't get the weight off. Well, I'll eat healthier and I'll eat. But it wasn't working. So the doctors are like, oh, it's just your hormones. Oh, it's just this. And it was like, here's your medication and and I didn't really feel any better. So I finally got diagnosed with celiac disease, which is an autoimmune condition, and then Hashimoto's, which is thyroid autoimmune. I was like, ooh, okay. And I thought, well, great, I have these diagnoses. Now we can fix it. And they're like, oh, there's no fixing that. Like there has to be a fix, right? So I ended up going back to school for nutrition and natural medicine to find my own answers. And I did. And I reversed both of them. So looking at my labs and looking at things now, it doesn't show up. It's not there. But I had to change a whole lot of thought process on what healthy was. And a lot of it was emotional. Again, we're Gen X. We were taught to suck it up. Like that, we're the suck it up generation. So I had to learn when not to do that, when to let go. And what my body was really telling me. It wasn't just like push harder, right? So in in the process of becoming a natural health practitioner, I decided, because, I had nothing else to do, I opened restaurants. And they were the first gluten-free restaurants in Arizona. I opened 3 of them. I partnered with the School of Naturopathic Medicine here, and it blew up. Women were like, no one ever talks about this kind of thing. And a lot of my clients were business owners. I mean, that's who I am. And we think differently, I think, than the average W-2 for person. Not that there's anything wrong with being a W-2. But we think differently when we're caring for people. I had 28 employees. I had to make payroll every month. I had 3 locations I had to be concerned about. I had online programs helping people reverse autoimmune conditions. So it was all the moving pieces, and I freaking loved every second of it. And then fortunately, the universe stepped in and helped me decide that I was going to move out of the brick and mortar piece 10 months before COVID hit. So I left the restaurant industry not knowing what was coming. Of course, none of us did. And was able to get out from under the corporate the brick and mortar piece right before all of that kind of went down. And I went online with my program, helping people all over the world reverse autoimmune conditions. And I started seeing a trend after 15 years of doing that a lot of my clients were almost all women, and so many of them were business owners. And I'm like, what's the connection there? So I shifted about a year ago into working more specifically with women who are business owners to help them feel healthy in their bodies and also healthy in their businesses.
So a couple of things. Number one is you mentioned that you had shifted out of brick and mortar right before COVID. That was just really good intuition. Okay.
We'll call that divine intervention, because holy cow, right?
And I can relate to that because in 2019, I started doing online seminars for my business model. And then in January of 2020, I did the second one, and then everything shut down. So we hit the ground running. We were able to serve over 35,000 people during the COVID. What the heck made me go out there and do those online at that time? I don't know, other than it was luck or just intuition said that. So good for you. It's always nice when intuition, you got to pay attention to it, works out there. The other question I want to ask you is, I didn't realize that your story with Hashimoto disease, I would love to invite you back for an entire topic on that.
Sure.
That is one of the...
Hashimoto's is huge for men and women, but women more often. I think some of it's because women get diagnosed faster because they ask more quickly than men typically do, but that's an opinion.
Kelly, I could really go off on Hashimoto's disease for the next hour on this, but I'm not going to. I'm going to reserve those questions. I'm going to stay on point. But I'm going to put you on the hook here to come back and do a whole podcast on that, because I think that would be so empowering to people, because most, general practitioners, they, if you get low iron, they're just like, well, you got low iron, supplement this. They don't start doing the tests that you need to do to really determine if it's tied into Hashimoto's. And a lot of times... No,
even endocrinologists, they don't understand. I am fascinated by what they don't either know or talk about.
Yeah, so every time I see somebody and they say, oh, I have low iron, I'm like, did you get checked for Hashimoto's? They're like, nope. I says, these are the tests you need to do. And
so many things. Yeah, absolutely. That'd be fun.
Very good. Go ahead, Kelly. Jump in.
Yeah, so I love to get practical right away. So for those of us out there now, we're 50 plus, just doing this old hustle model, and we know it's not sustainable, but we're still trying to get up every day and doing it. What do you do to help these people?
A great question. I mean, the first thing is really kind of understanding what they think the problem is, and then start, even with when I was doing health, this is the same way I went about doing it, is figuring out what's the root cause of that. What's the root cause of you not having cash flow the way that you've had before? What's the root cause of you not pulling in the ideal premium clients that you want to pull in? What's the issue with you being so tired all the time? It's not just because you're 50. Which is such bullshit. Like, hopefully I'm allowed to say that, but I can't.
More the merrier. Kelly doesn't curse,
okay.
But I
Bring
make
it on.
up.
I'm from
I make
Philly,
up for
so
both of us. Okay, so
stuff comes out.
We're from Jersey.
Okay, Philly, Jersey, we got this. So it's really understanding what's causing the issue, and energetically, it comes back to a lot of the same stuff. Your body is trying to tell you that you're out of alignment with something, and it may have worked for you to a point, but as we get older, I mean, after 50, I had like no F's to give anymore. Like there was a whole lot of things that didn't matter to me in the same way. So there's a shift that occurs energetically, emotionally, physically. And the also BS of it's just your hormones also isn't okay. So my husband's in his late 50s. He's a bodybuilder. He's also a natural health practitioner, and he looks better than most people in their 40s, but he also takes care of himself, as I do as well. And we look at the world differently. Are you getting I mean, here's some simple stuff that most people are not getting, especially over 50. Are you sleeping effective, restorative sleep between 7 and 9 hours every single night? Not some of the time, not catch up on the weekends, like literally every night. Are you getting enough water? And even if you're drinking enough water, because I hear this a lot from people too. Oh, I'm drinking plenty of water. I get, my gallon jug and I drag it around with me all day. I'm like, are you absorbing the water? Mm-hmm. That's a whole different problem. And if you're not absorbing properly, which is a huge problem for people over 30, you're not going to take in the water. It's just going to flush out right out of your system and you're not going to get what you need from it. Yeah. So if your adrenals, so the adrenals are the gland, they sit on top of your kidneys. They look like little, like walnuts. They sit on top of your kidneys. They're responsible for half your hormone production. The other half are either your testes or your ovaries. What a lot of people don't understand is we continue to get older, especially over 35, your testes, ovaries start to slow down their production of hormones, but your adrenal glands are still doing the work. So once you start getting into that 40, 50 zone, women go through menopause, men go through andropause, you start slowing that down. One of the biggest things your body isn't doing effectively anymore is absorbing. It's one of the responsibilities of the hormones that are being produced and the adrenal function. The adrenals are also responsible for how we manage stress. And it's not just like emotional stress, it's physical stress. It's energetic stress. It's whatever your body sees as a load that it has to manage. If it starts to be too much, which you may have been getting away with it in your 20s and 30s, by the time we hit 35, 40, 50, your body's like, I can't take this anymore. I've been carrying this crap around for 20, 30, 40 years. Now your body isn't making the hormones from the adrenals either. So that's why you see people, men in andropause and women in menopause and their 40s, 50s, hitting a wall, and then their doctor's saying you're so depleted from hormones, and their only solution typically is we're going to give you more, which actually confuses the body further, because then you're giving it something it's supposed to be able to still make on its own, and then it stops making, it gets the message to stop making them altogether. So now you need more and more and more. And there's a fluctuation and a harmony with the hormones. So you can't just take one and not have an impact on the others. So this is where it starts to get really interesting. This also affects things like depression, anxiety. That's why we start to see that go up pretty dramatically when your adrenal function is off and your hormone production from your ovaries or your testes start to slow down too. So that's why you'll see a lot of people at this age hitting a wall, like they don't understand why. Oh, it's just my hormones. I'm like, well, it's all the things that help support hormone production and balance. So I like to take it back a step further. It's not just your hormones are out of whack. It's what's causing the hormones to be out of whack, the technical term.
How important do you think it is to stay proactive on really in-depth blood work at this point in life?
It's a good question. My husband and I both do our own blood work at least once a year just to get a story behind it. Like there's a story to your hormones, right? And normal isn't necessarily good because that's only the average person. So the average person isn't well. So if you're comparing normal, what you want is optimal. And there's an optimal for each individual person, but there's a range of optimal that's different than normal. You don't want normal, you want optimal. So you want a story. So he and I have been doing our labs for a long time. And we just see the story, what's shifting. The challenge, especially if you're like perimenopausal or menopausal, is that at any given point, those hormones could be very different from moment to moment or day to day. So you're only capturing a moment. So if people use that as like the only answer, oh, my hormones are really low right now. I'm like, well, it depends on where you are in your cycle, and men have their own individual cycles, which a lot of people don't really wrap their head around that either. But women, even in menopause, have a cycle. So the hormones are supposed to be fluctuating very specifically. And if you don't know where you are in that cycle, that also doesn't tell you, because your hormones could be in a very different place and still be ideal or optimal. So that's the other piece that a lot of, endocrinologists don't even discuss.
Well, one of the points I was going to make or ask you is that if you go to a general practitioner, they do very basic blood work. Should somebody be doing, like, I just signed up for Function Health, 100 tests, Black Friday sale, $350. Twice a year you could do it. I mean, I think that I got turned on to that when I was getting some in-depth. I've been seeing a naturopath since my 40s. I'm 58 now. 2 different ones. And it's been very helpful for me. But in-depth blood work seems to be the way to really learn. I think everybody should be their own.
They should know more than they do typically. Our clients know more than their doctors a lot of the times because they'll go in and ask, I want to make sure we're hitting these specific measures and these specific markers. And the doctor's like, well, they're not necessary. And they're like, well, they're necessary because I want to know this, this, and this. And the doctors are like, oh. But if you think about it, and I'm not trying to slam, MDs or DOs, they're trained from the position of pharmaceutical. So most of what they're looking for is, do we need to put pharmaceuticals into the mix? Not how do we fix this? Because MD isn't necessarily we're going to heal. It's a how do we manage the disease, which is a very different thought process.
Yeah. So if someone does have low hormones in this stage of life, do you recommend hormones, or I guess it's very individual?
I typically don't. I mean, there is a call for it in specific cases, but most of the time I don't, because it means there's a core issue that has never been addressed. Right? Like if you have a little kid that you see and you're crossing a playground and he's being beaten up by a bunch of little kids, you don't run over and put Band-Aids on him. You pull the kids who are beating him up off of him. If you think of your body as that little kid, by just replacing hormones, you're not correcting what got you there in the first place. You're not addressing adrenal fatigue. You're not addressing what's really going on. And until you address that, it's really just going to continue to get worse. And you at best have a Band-Aid solution. You have a short-term at best solution if you're doing that. Again, they could be helpful in the short term, but not unless you have a long-term strategy.
I'm sorry, definitely a great way to look at it. So you talked about adrenal fatigue. I think it was, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago. I was traveling a lot, 180 plus days a year. And adrenal fatigue is one of those things you could sleep 10 hours and you still feel tired if you're that type of person. Is it still the test of like a 24-hour cortisol test? Is that still the test that most people suggest for?
Cortisol's helpful. That's one of the ones that we'd like to look at and see what's going on.
What would be one of the other ones there? So, I mean, honestly, if you're listening to this or watching this and you are constantly tired, no matter how much you sleep, there's an underlying issue. And I think you would agree with that. And you got to dive into that because, just being the way you are now, what's the saying? Well, this is the way you're supposed to be for 58 or 55 or it's bullshit. Okay. I'm sorry. That's not the way. So you need to fight that narrative big time. So
we've normalized things for people at a certain age. We've normalized things for people with children, for women, where we're like, oh, well, that's just because you have kids. Oh, that's just because you're in your cycle. Oh, that's just because you're 50. No. That's what we've normalized because a lot of people who are 50 are tired, but it's not normal, it's common, which are two very distinctly different things. Just because everyone around you is saying, oh, that's how I feel too, doesn't make it healthy. We're just used to it, especially in this country. We're like, overwork, under vacation, stress yourself out, do all the things, feel like crap, and say it's okay. It's not okay.
It's not. So for the adrenal fatigue, you said sleeping 8-9 hours a day, water that you're absorbing. What are some other things to remediate?
So it's specifically restorative sleep, which is a whole different level of sleep that you have to get into, and we can talk more about that in a second. And then the water, and then gut health. Gut health is it's 80 to 90% of what's going on in your body is actually coming from how healthy your gut is. Because again, back to absorption, you could be eating the healthiest foods ever, but if your gut is so out of alignment, and it won't be able to absorb what you're taking in, right? So there's a lot to poop, right? So seeing what poop looks like, and a lot of people are like, they joke about it, and I'm like, it's not okay to be talking about explosive diarrhea or constipation all the time. It's not normal for you. It's not normal. Like, going to the bathroom once a week or 3 times a week isn't okay. It should be 1 to 2 to 3 times a day on a regular basis.
And we're talking
it's not a huge problem.
talking not a number 1, we're talking a number 2 here.
Absolutely, number 2. Let's get that out of your system.
With women that are overweight, they are all backed up. They're
women who are underweight are backed up. I mean, women in general, but we're told, that your hormones are do that. Now, your hormones, when they're out of balance, absolutely have impact on what you're eliminating. So detoxing, your body has its own detox process. If it's not detoxing properly, you're going to get sick more often. You're going to be more constipated. You're going to reabsorb. So if you're constipated, you're reabsorbing hormones back into your body that were supposed to leave. So if you think of hormone imbalance, that's one of the major reasons for men and women that you see, right? So this is where it starts to get super interesting. And again, you can clear a lot of things, knowing your body's absorbing properly, making sure that you're detoxing properly. And you don't have to do some giant crazy detox. Like I just came off of a 4-day water fast. I do them periodically. They're incredibly helpful when you know how to do them right. And I don't suggest that for everybody, but there's a way to do things like that. And most people try to jump to like the hardest version of something, especially Gen Xers. We're like, give us the hardest version of it. I'm like, how about we just get you to drink some water? There's no need to just go 4 days into just water only. Let's drink some water. So that's the other thing. There are so many simpler things that could be done to get major support and effectiveness in the body.
So we can go down this rabbit hole, and I love this topic. Very passionate about it, so I appreciate all the insight you share. We told everybody about, how frequencies work, and your podcast is the frequency of yes. Is that correct?
It is.
So I think this topic is really unique. Why? Because when you talk to people about it, sometimes when you talk about your vibration or you talk about frequency, or you get this just like deer in the headlights look for probably 99% of the population. But then when you look at people who are at the top of their game, just about every one of them talks about a frequency or quantum physics or everything. So maybe you could kind of just give a really simple explanation of a very complicated subject and how it works, and maybe how people can apply some of the techniques to their life after listening or watching this podcast so that they can level up a little bit.
Absolutely. Frequency is everything. So if you think of everything is a vibration. So each of us is in our own vibration right now. When I'm angry, I'm a different vibration. When I'm excited or elated, I'm a different vibration. The tree outside of my window right now is a vibration. All the dogs on my floor are in their own vibration, right? And if you've ever walked into a room where you just go, something doesn't feel right here, you're sensing the vibration of what's going on in that room from the collective people or something else going on. It's measurable. So I love the woo, but I love the science, right? So I like to balance both. And we are sensory beings. And by that, I mean, we can see things. We can literally touch things. We can smell things. There's a reason we're designed that way. It's to help keep us safe. And so that we understand what's going on around us at all times. If you watch an animal, they're leading with their sensory experience before their thought. They're not like, oh, I wonder that guy looks okay. They're going with what feels right. Babies and under the age of 7 and dogs and animals, they're going off of their sensory experience. We have to start getting back to who we are as sensory beings, because we're still doing that, but we think we're so smart that we're trying to override it with our thought. Everything we do actually feeds through the sensory experience first. We then try to interpret it and override it with our mind. So those of us who are trying to figure things out, who we over-logic things, we're not actually logical beings. We use the logic to explain it, but we're still physically feeling it. And that's where the somatic intelligence comes from. It's the intelligence of the body and how to interpret what that sensory experience is. Like I put people through exercises where I can get a yes out of them or a no for a question that they've been sitting on for years. And it's because their body reacts a certain way. So I can teach people how to do that. So when you're in a situation, you start to connect to, is this a yes for me or is this a no? Not all the logical reasons. And I love me a good spreadsheet, but not all the logical reasons. It's the sensory what's right for me right now. And that's why people can have a successful business or a successful relationship, and all of a sudden one day it shifts. It's because something in them starts to shift, but they're trying to force the logic over the sensory experience. And that's when you start seeing disease. Like autoimmune conditions are the body attacking self because it doesn't recognize part of self. So if it doesn't recognize you, if you're not living in your truth, to speak in the woo terms, if you're not living in who you truly are in the right frequency for you, your body will start trying to tell you. And if you're not getting those messages when it's, subtly giving them to you, it'll start showing up as pain, fatigue, headaches, nausea, autoimmune conditions. Like, it'll keep hitting you harder and harder and harder until you pay attention. And it doesn't hate you. It just wants your attention.
So I think you made a really good point. I know you're trying to jump in, Kelly. Just let me get this point across that.
Yeah.
You got to listen to your intuition. If you're sitting there going, something's not right, something's not right. Okay? Because a lot of times, especially as men in the generation I grew up in, where men did not complain about their health, they just really dropped dead after, working all these years. The intuition is always looking for homeostasis. It's always looking to keep your nervous system, everything kind of working right. And we could drown that out with our self-talk. Don't worry about it. I'll think about it later. Or, it's probably nothing, or kind of that belief system. How do you overcome that with somebody? Or is there anything we could teach somebody to deal with that? Because it's pretty easy.
Yeah, first is just asking the question and getting curious. What's really not working for me right now? What feels out of alignment? This isn't me being weird. This is truth and how we're designed, how we're wired. And every one of us has some level of trauma. And that word is so overused right now. But trauma doesn't have to be some big, huge thing where you saw your family murdered in front of you. It could be that. But for most of us, it's something a lot less than that. It's something where we felt abandoned at one point, didn't even make the connection, but it was normalized for us to just walk it off. If that gets stuck in the system and that trauma release cycle doesn't happen, your body will actually keep cycling the trauma as if it's happening right now. Even if it's at a low level, it's just vibrating in the background all the time. So you start to become more triggered when you think something is leaving, you're losing clients, your spouse says something to you that they don't agree with you and you suddenly feel like they're going to leave. These are little tiny things that happen over time, and then we suck them in, hold on to them, don't know how to release them. And it's not big things you have to do. Like I do retreats and things like this to do kind of bigger level stuff with people, but you don't need to go that direction. There's simple things that can happen that I work with my clients. I have frequency sessions where I can put them through a 20-minute session and let them release something they didn't even know was stuck. I do specific breath work, and it's not the typical breath work that most people see, that brings them to a state where they're opening up places in their system that's letting go and finishing the cycle of trauma. And people are cleared of stuff in short periods of time. Now, that being said, it isn't just over. You want to make sure you now normalize the new feeling, because it feels weird sometimes when you're not carrying the baggage. So I always have how do we reintroduce this back into your normalcy now? So the session itself may clear it, but you also have to do some things to also hold it as your new normal. But it doesn't take medications. And it's amazing how it can work when you're open and curious about changing it.
I just talked to a friend yesterday who has had a very dysregulated nervous system due to a lot of trauma, and she has been doing all the things. She's in a group, she's in, counseling, she's doing vibration, she's, so many things, and she was doing really well. And then something happened on Sunday and she got triggered and like right back into it. And it really scared her. She was like, I thought I was doing good. I thought I was making progress. And the nervous system, must be trained to just go right back to that. So what are some of the things to get them to lock in a new normal and not have that kind of a setback from a trigger?
Well, in that case, I wouldn't consider that a setback. I would consider that more information that your body is now ready to open. And that potentially she was in a situation that she didn't realize was going to be triggering. So it gives her an opportunity to work more on whatever that trigger is. So like a lot of us feel great. Then we go home for Thanksgiving and there's a trigger. Your family was part of your original triggers, right? They didn't mean to be necessarily. But like our people Our core people who we grew up with are often the very thing that will trigger us. They're great ways to test, to see, do I need some more work here? So if you get triggered, that doesn't mean you've screwed up. That doesn't mean that it's wrong. That doesn't mean you've lost the advancement that you've made. It means that you have another opportunity to go deeper. It's like going to the gym and slapping on extra weight one day and thinking, oh, well, all the work I did to this point is wrong because this weight's too much for me.
Well, I think the way you worded that was excellent, because you basically took a disempowering belief. I screwed everything up and turned it into, wait, your body just gave you more due diligence, for lack of a better word, saying this is what is going on. Pay attention to it. And you created an empowering belief off of it.
I have a new opening to go deeper. And for whatever reason, that particular trigger, and I'd want to get to the real root of that with her, is to really see, where's the opportunity here? You're now ready. Like when I have clients who they come to me with something like that, I'm like, you're now ready for the next level. This is an ascension for you. This isn't backwards. And I'm not saying that because I just want them to think, oh, this is great. It's because it's true. You weren't prepared to handle that before. Now your body is at fighting weight that it needs to be able to handle that. And how do we move forward with that? Because it's not, you messed up, you're not going backwards, you're just now in another level. And when you're the little guy at the next level, it can feel hard because you were doing great before, but you were also protecting yourself from some of the harder things. So she has an amazing opportunity to go even deeper.
I will share that with her. That's great perspective to be learning. So in these sessions, are you using like tuning forks? Are you using those bowls? Are you using vibration plates? What is a session like?
All of the things. I work with most people online, so it's fascinating to me still how well this works. And it's funny, my tuning forks are literally right there. And I was talking to a client about that yesterday. I love the tuning forks, but if you think of vibration and frequency to be beyond sound. So I do use sound, and I use things that you can't even hear, but it's also visual. I mean, like colors are a frequency. Dogs hear things that we don't. What you feel is a frequency. So all of the sensory experience, I do a process that I call frequency healing. I learned some techniques from a couple other people through biofield healing and a bunch of other things, and I kind of pulled it all together and created my own. But it's frequency healing, and it's about a 20-minute session. It wouldn't make sense to you if you saw me doing it, but I can influence the frequency around you. You then get to receive the frequency that your body knows it needs. And it moves the frequency around you, even over there. Like I could do it over here, or I could record it and send it to you. Now, you don't necessarily hear anything. You don't necessarily feel anything, but something shifts it's typically 18 to 22 minutes. And then you can use it again. It's fascinating. And I know it's not making logical sense because I know some people just need the tangibility, which I struggled a lot with it when I was first learning. I'm like, but tell me the tangible part. They're like, there's there's nothing you can touch. But when you go through it, you're like, what just happened? I can use hypnosis techniques with people as well. But the breathwork techniques that I use typically is a very specific pattern of breathing that gets deep into your soul. And if you've ever done any like plant medicine, so you've ever done any like psychedelics or anything at that level, it gets into the same part of the brain when you breathe a certain way. And it opens up that space for you to feel safe and release. It's the closest thing I've ever seen to using plant medicine without using it. It's fascinating to me. Those sessions are typically an hour to an hour and a half. Typically, most people are lying down. But it's a specific type of breath work. I layer in about 9 different layers of sound on top of it. And there's singing bowls, there's biofield feedback beats, there's music, and the breath work. And people go into these other spaces, and it's really activating the theta state. So that's the state that your brain goes into right before you go to sleep. And that's where healing really occurs, and that's where restorative sleep really happens. So
Sounds wonderful. Sign me up.
It's super fun, and you need an hour to an hour and a half to do it, and I can record them and send them. So you can do it at your own leisure.
So what would be the difference in listening to something like this versus going through a hypnosis? I mean, I'm a certified hypnotherapist for 30 plus years, and I think the perception of people when it comes to tapping into the subconscious, especially when you start talking about some of the things that you're talking about. Look, the research, if you looked at the research for, let's call it mushrooms a couple of years ago, there was new research up and coming. I think I remember Tim Ferriss was the first one really saying, hey, mushrooms are the way to go. Here's why. Go invest in this company and blah, blah, blah. That was way before COVID, okay? And he recommended that. Now you look at today, what is it, like 9 states have it approved. There's, people using it all the time to reset the brain chemistry for lack of a really deep explanation. I think this, when it comes to, I'm going to call it quantum physics, or you can call it frequency or energies, there's a lot of research going on this. So why do I say that? Don't shut the hell down. Keep your mind open, okay? Because you're here today, and I say this, your intuition got you here. Plug into what we're teaching you here today. Kirstin is making the hell of a lot of sense on this thing. We throw the term woo-woo around because it's so easy when you start talking about spinning this bowl or this thing here to go, that's complete BS. That doesn't go in the Western world here in America. It doesn't work. Yes, it does. It's only a matter of time before the research catches up with the technology, in my opinion.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to just tell you to hug a crystal and it's all going to be fine, though I have crystals running around in my office right now. But I think it's the combination of understanding how do our bodies work, how do we move with what's going on in the earth. I mean, women, there's a reason it's called the moon cycle. Women's bodies used to follow the moon cycle. We have now stepped in the way of that, and we're medicating and we're giving people hormones and we're doing this. We're messing up our connection. So now we're dysregulated even from the earth. There's a reason people feel better when they literally get their hands in the dirt. There's a frequency to the earth. Like we're coming up against a full moon. There's a reason people feel differently during a full moon. And it's not just wackadoodle stuff. There's science behind it.
My ex always said I got wacky during a full moon. So maybe that's why I was a little wacky this morning here. But
it's coming up. But animals notice it. Animals sense it. Right? People sleep differently during the full moon. I mean, it's very interesting, some of the studies that have come out, but pushing the studies away, how do you feel? And are you even connected enough to know? So, again, you told me that I was doing some of this stuff 10 years ago, I would have told you were crazy. But some of the experiences I've had now, and again, as I get older, I start to be, I think, more open to possibility and not just the black and white thinking of it has to be this way. Because I grew up in, medicine is the fixer and doctors make it all better, to they couldn't help me. I had to find an alternative route. And now I'm healthy. Like every time I go to a doctor, I'll go to a doctor for my annual check for kicks, and they'll ask me all these questions and they're fascinated that I'm over 50 and I'm on no medication. Like nothing? I'm like nothing.
That is such a rarity today. It really is, for sure. When I speak to somebody and they're like, yeah, I don't take any meds, I'm like, God bless you. You're doing wonderful.
The average person is on 4 to 8 medications.
So you've done a really interesting pivot in your career. I mean, really focusing on kind of the naturopathic medicine to now really tapping into the energy in the body there. What was it just like you saw the writing on the wall, or was it just you did it because it made you level up and feel much better? Or is it the research? I mean, I'm just curious for my own personal stake. Y'all don't have to pay attention to this question.
I think it's all of the above, right? Like, when you feel better, you don't realize how bad you feel sometimes until you feel better. And then you're like, oh, all these things are gone. I thought they were normal. Well, okay.
Yeah. I think Gary Brecka said it best. He said it that when he works with somebody and they feel good, he's like, this is what you're supposed to feel like. This is normal. You just haven't felt normal. Yeah. So you just said that. Good point. So.
Yeah. And so then you're like, well, how much better could I feel? So then you start just kind of, and then things come to you or they show up in your life. We're big fans of Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton, huge fan of his, Dr. Joe Dispenza. We love a lot of that stuff. But now I have friends, I hear myself saying things sometimes that I just, again, 20 years ago, that version of me would laugh her ass off. But I hear myself saying, my shaman tells me this, or I'm like, who am I? But I also attract more women in my life or people in my life who are interested in these conversations, right? So it's becoming more normal. And I think our generation is very much the bridge between the black and white thinking, you can only do it this way and no woo, to what's going on with some of the younger generations who are like super on the woo side in a way that I'm like, but you're not grounded in reality. I think of everything as a balloon and a string. You need to be tethered in a way so you're grounded, but you also need the balloon to help you kind of float and see. But when you only have a balloon with no string, they're floating off into nowhere. If you only have a tether, you're just grounded. So I think our generation's more of the combination of both, that are open to seeing maybe there is something else here. But what's the science behind it? What's the magic and the science, and why is it that way? So I think we have a unique opportunity to just ask questions. And then there's some stuff, I have some friends that are so woo that I just don't even understand where they are in their minds and their bodies sometimes. But hallelujah for that, right? And then I have people who are so uber grounded that this is still weird for them. But I feel like I'm the one in between that holds them all together.
That's beautiful. Mark and I are both finishing this book, 100 is the New 30 by Dr. Jeffrey Gladden, who's an interventional cardiologist turned longevity medicine. And the question that he asks is, how good can I be? Like, how young can I be? And you're right, those questions and that curiosity is what gets people to think differently and not be stopped and stuck in wherever they're at. So for the person out there who's maybe having a little light bulb moment going, maybe this isn't good, that my back hurts and I have no energy and I can't sleep and all the things. What are some daily things that they can do? You mentioned grounding, but just things that every day that lead to betterment, that are sort of the ripple in the pond that add up.
Anything that allows movement in the body. So fluidity. So water is fluid. Getting to the gym 3 to 4 times a week, not spending all day there, but having, what's working for you, not overdoing anything, but also having something in your life that causes you to move. Like, I have my 4 dogs on the floor. My husband and I like to be active, but I'm also not somebody who's going to hike to the top of the mountain. Like, I'm not that girl, right? So I don't overplay it, though I once upon a time did. But movement. I mean, if you just think of fluidity and movement in your life, what's getting you there? What's different? Is it stagnant? I love to read different books from people that I don't necessarily think I would like. I love biographies, things I like to see how people function and they tick. And I love to just try new things when it comes to health. Now, that being said, I'm not a huge fan of like injecting a lot of things into my body. Like, I'm not doing some of those things. I like to see how can we leverage nature to leverage our body to be as good as it can be. Because it knows how to do so much stuff that we override. And we don't get the intelligence out of it.
I love that. My mom was just here and we went to see Cirque du Soleil. And I'm looking at these performers, these acrobats, these athletic bodies and how they move. I'm like, their nervous systems, like the way they bend and their agility and their balance. And then like they're constantly training their nervous systems versus a lot of us that are sitting in a chair. We're not balancing, we're not doing things because we need to retrain our nervous system before we can retrain the muscles. People don't realize it's the nervous system.
It's all about the nervous system.
Yeah. So any other tips on how things we can do, practically to retrain our nervous system?
I mean, a lot of people say, I can't sit still. That's your body saying something is wrong that it thinks it needs to run from. There's a danger element running around the back of your mind. So I don't think, I'm not sitting there for 5 hours a day meditating or anything. But if you can't sit still and just take a moment to breathe and to sit or read, but if your brain's going constantly, give up your phone for a while. No white screens an hour and a half before bedtime. Nothing in your bedroom other than sleeping or getting busy with your spouse, or your person, right? So make sure that you're looking at each room in your house and using it for what it was designed for and not pushing things together. Like, don't eat in your bedroom. Don't look at your phone in your bedroom. It trains your brain to think those things are supposed to happen there. And so you're not going to sleep effectively. And even if you do fall asleep, it's taking longer for your brain to get into theta state. Eat in certain places in your house only, because your central nervous system is going to start to learn a pattern. And if you are shoving food down your throat while you're driving, and your brain starts to connect hurrying with eating, you won't digest and absorb the same way. So use the things in your house the way they were intended, right? So I have clients all the time that are like, as soon as they take away the screens out of their bedroom, like the phone is not actually in the room because the frequency is still there, they sleep and they feel better in the morning. And they're like, this is fascinating. Like, isn't it? So there are some of the other things I look at. What's the pattern? Like, sit down and write out what's happening through your day. What's the pattern? What time do you go to bed? Chinese medicine shows us that each of our individual organs has a very specific time during the day it's most active. If you were going to sleep, and I don't mean bed, if you're sleeping, if you're falling asleep after 10 o'clock at night, your body is actually not going to detox and be able to get the energy it needs for the next day. If you're going to sleep, every hour you're going to sleep after that, you're actually stealing energy from the next day. So things like that, some going to bed after 10 or before 10 and making sure you're getting up like between like 6 and 7. You should be pushing things out of your system in the morning, first thing in the morning. And if you're not pooping somewhere between 7 and 9 in the morning, there's something not okay with your system. So there's all these patterns. So the question is, what's your pattern daily? What do you want it to be? What are you telling your system? And if you're not patterning the way that our cycle of our organs are supposed to work, the body thinks it's in trouble. So there's a low level, or maybe high, low level of challenge going on. If you're drinking a lot of caffeine, if you're dependent on caffeine, not good. So I start to look at people's patterns. I'm like, when are you drinking? What are you drinking? How much caffeine are you taking in? Are you pushing things out of your body from the time you eat to the time it moves out of your body? It should be 18 to 24 hours, no more, no less. What are you eating? Why are you eating that? Are you actually hungry? Is your body craving that? Or are you in a pattern, right? Like there's times, I sit down and I'm like, I'm eating this because I'm in a pattern that it feels good to eat right now, not because I actually need it. So you start to ask yourself with curiosity and not blame, why am I in this pattern? What does this pattern mean for me? Do I even notice this? I did an event at our restaurant one time where we did a sensory experience with food. And my chefs and I created this whole experience, and you couldn't use forks or anything. You had to use your hands. It was so much fun. But we started with chocolates that had flower essence in them. And everybody picked the color they wanted, and they sat with it. And there was a woman there. And these are really freaking expensive chocolates. We had them put it on their tongue and sit with it. And they had to sit at least 30 seconds with it without chewing or swallowing it. 10 seconds in, this woman at the table spit it back out and started to sob. And we were like, that is not the experience we thought you were going to have. And I was like, what is happening? And she said, I eat bags of chocolate and I hide it from people. And I just realized sitting here with this chocolate, it's a pure cacao. She said, I don't even like the flavor. Why am I eating so much? And it was a whole connection. She had never really tasted what she was eating. She was just shoveling it through. And a lot of people have a connection with food that's very broken, a connection with alcohol, a connection with a lot of things that are very broken, but food especially, because it's not something you can just stop doing for a long period of time. So there's a lot in that. I think I got a little off track there, but there we go.
No, it's good. There's so much. 95% of what we do after the age of 35 is habitual. And if those habits are great, awesome. Like I made plenty of mistakes raising my kids, but they do have a lot of great lifestyle habits, just, good habits. You don't eat in your car, your bed, so those kind of things. They sleep well, they get to the gym, they function well. But the environment matters. I have a friend who's a hoarder, and I just couldn't even imagine that, and how that impacts everything. So you want to speak maybe a little bit to the environment, what's around people, and how that affects their body and their energy?
Yeah, it normalizes things. If you think about, and when I see environments, who you're hanging out with, what you're reading, what you're watching TV on. I was watching TV the other day, and there was a woman on there who it was funny. It was like a TV show. It was Doc, I think, medicine TV show, and it's all the drama. And it was interesting. I now really pay attention to what seems like a throwaway line that's very strategic to normalize a thought process. So it's in a hospital, the setting is, and the woman said something about having her children, and she said something about having them in the hospital. I'm not one of those people who's a home birther. I have to have my epidural. And it seemed like a throwaway line, but when I realized I have a lot of clients and a lot of friends who actually investigate or do have had home births because they want to do it more naturally. That doesn't work for all people, no judgment. But what I thought was really interesting is they black and whited that is an issue. Like, you're a weirdo if you want to have your kid at home. But it's normal in my world because I know a lot of natural healers and I know a lot of naturopaths and I know a lot of people who like natural medicine. And it's very normal to have your child at home in my world. But it's also normal to have it in the hospital, right? So that's the kind of stuff that I start to look at. What's your environment? What's your thought process? What is normal, right? What are the books? Like, if you could see the stack of books on my desk, you would know what I think is normal and okay. But when you grow up in an environment that makes something not okay, you start to think everything around that is not okay. And that's what we think is too woo or not woo. But if you have to start listening to the story that's being told behind the scenes in the stuff that you're watching. Like, I love Dancing with the Stars because it's like so fun and everybody loves each other and they're all supporting each other. It's so great. That's the only reality show that I watch because I feel uplifted when I'm watching the show because they're all supporting each other. Some of the other shows on there, they're purposely pitting each other against themselves. Like, what's that environment? Because you're going to start looking at the world like that. That's why our algorithms follow and track us. What are you watching? They'll show you more of that. That's what you think is normal. That's why we have infighting and we think everything is one side or the other. It's not. Most of the Democratic friends I have think a lot more Republican than they realize. A lot of my Republican friends think a lot more Democratic. Most of us are standing on the line somewhere and leaning on one side. We're not as extreme, right? But it serves the world, it serves the people in power to make us think like we are opposites because it's easier to sell stuff that way. So when you look at your environment, ask yourself, is this serving me? Are the people around me the people that I want? Are they thinking openly and objectively and they're having fun with things? Or are they like, oh, can't have this, and those people think those people are dumb. And I'm like, are they though? I mean, some people, But if you don't put your shopping cart back, I think things about you. So just so you know. But I think that we have to watch the black and white thinking. And if you are getting increasing things in your life and your environment that are supporting that, you're not going to live in a space where you feel safe. And that's what your central nervous system wants.
So much truth, so impactful. I do a lot of hiring for companies, and one of the things we have them do is a culture index, which is a profile that gives us a snapshot of how they're wired and how they show up at work. And there was one guy he was incredibly qualified, but his profile came back that he was filled with fear. So when I was interviewing him, I was sort of trying to dig out what that was. I asked him what hobbies he liked, and he said he watched horror movies. I'm like, okay, well, yeah, put two and two together. You watch horror movies for fun, you're probably going to be filled with fear. And it showed up in just a profile. So it's like the body keeps the score. It's weaving into every area of your life.
Right in front of me. Yep.
Yeah, right here.
Why the hell you need to watch a horror movie to be scared? The life's scary enough some days as it is. I mean, you just walk out the door.
No, I don't want to feel like life is like, a lot of the rom-coms are silly and things like that, but it's, what do I want the world to be? And my world isn't that frightening. I'm still up against all the same things everybody else is up against. I don't look at it through rose-colored glasses. Like, I know the reality of what's going on too, but I never feel like the world is ending for me at any given time based on any decision that's being made anywhere. We have no control over anything in the end, but the idea of control to us is actually just kind of comical. But I'm also real. Like, my mortgage gets paid, but there's a thing. So when people look at the environment, I think they only look at like their surroundings, but there's a reason I live where I live too. It's sunny most of the time out here in Arizona. Like, what? And I know I function better when there's more sun. So I left Philadelphia, left everyone who is still there, the whole big Irish Catholic family that they are. And I came out here and everybody's like, oh my God, why would you leave? I'm like, why would you stay? But cool if you want to. Don't make me wrong for it. So when we make people wrong for stuff, that's where it gets curious. But if you want to up-level anything in your life, like you want to make more money, you better be hanging out with people who make more money than you do. Like if you hang out with a bunch of broke people, you're going to be broke.
What do I do? I'm a person, I'm listening to this, I'm watching this, and, I'm in an environment that's not the healthiest environment. I got, a marriage that's not great. I got, a job that I'm not fulfilled with. I want to raise my frequency. I want to raise my vibration. I want to be able to be in tune with what's going on and how to level up my life. What would you suggest somebody, one or two things they could do to, should it be reading? I mean, I'm a big fan of reading. I'm a big fan of studying and just learning. Is like you said, you had a stack of books. Kelly and I, we have so many books at this point. It's ridiculous. I just ordered a book. I watched the A-Rod, a big Yankee fan, you being a Philly fan. So you can understand that. And he had a documentary that was on HBO, and it was really good because I think it was a doctor, I'm not sure who it was, who helped him. He spoke highly of. He recently passed away, and I did some searching. And I ended up buying his book. It's still in the package, though. I got to get to it. Okay. I'm in the middle of 2 or 3 other books here, but what should somebody do to get the wheels moving in the right direction for themselves?
Yeah, I mean, don't try and change it all at once because your central nervous system doesn't like that kind of thing. It's too many resources your body has to use to change so many things at once because you're still yourself, right? Like you can't just run away from who you are. And a lot of people try and do that. But start finding somebody who you want to learn from or emulate, somebody who has the thing that you want, somebody who has a better relationship. Like the people I tend to hang out with tend to be healthier people. So it's funny when we go to like parties at each other's houses, nobody asks about ingredients because we know what's in the food. Like nobody's bringing anything with gluten or dairy in it, like ever. It's typically organic. And it's not weird for us. So it's funny when I go to like parties with people who are not in my typical circle where I'm like, oh, right. I have to ask a whole lot of questions about what's going on here. Start to normalize the things you want different. Like if you want a better relationship with somebody, then you have to start hanging out with people who have healthy relationships. Pick something and start getting curious rather than, oh, I screwed this up. Like, I wonder why I was attracted to my spouse. I wonder why I allow myself to be beaten down like this emotionally. Like, I wonder why I keep saying yes when I really want to say no. It's ask questions from a curious standpoint. And then start looking around you and saying, is there anybody in my immediate circle, like the immediate 5 or 6 people that I spend the majority of my time with, and a lot of that's those of us who we work with, are they the kind of people that I would want to emulate, to be like? Do they have relationships the way that I think I want them to or not? Because they're normalizing the things that aren't working for you. So maybe it's a new job. Maybe it's not hanging out with some of the people that you hang out with a lot. I had this conversation with a client yesterday. She was super triggered by a family event. And when she talked about it, she's the only one that doesn't have children. And the family decides, all her brothers and sisters decide every year where they're going to go together. And they always pick something that's child friendly. And she's like, I don't want to spend my money in a place hanging out with a lot of little kids, but my family won't do anything that's not kid friendly. And she's like, but they keep pointing it out. And then they do things like, she's in her 50s. You get to sleep in the cot because you're not a couple. So you get to sleep in the pull-out cot. And she's like, I'm paying the same thing to be at these events and these, family events. And she started really getting upset. And I'm like, there's a point where you choose that. You're choosing to stay in that. I know they're your family, but that doesn't mean you choose suffering. Like, I love my family, but I choose to not live really close to them. They're fabulous people. But I know I can't spend a ton of time with them because we're very different. Doesn't make them wrong. Doesn't make me right. So start looking at parts of your life. What would you like to be different by this time next year? Focus on that. Ask yourself who has that thing. And maybe it's a book. Maybe it's a character on TV. It's possible, but start getting a feel for that. If people want books on specific things, I can absolutely give them. But start looking at who you're following on social media. Yeah. If they're not emulating or at the space you want to be at, stop following them.
I would.
That social media is going to keep showing you that nonsense.
Yeah, they're going to feed the algorithm of what they think is going to get you to produce the most cortisol and be the most pissed off because that's the way those things work.
My mom's like, "Oh, did you hear what happened on this today?" I'm like, "I don't watch any of that." And she's like, "How can you not stay connected?" I'm like, "It doesn't serve me." Maybe I'm avoiding.
Kelly, you got to jump in. I had a point. I lost my train of thought here
Sorry.
on something here. So go ahead, Kelly.
Yeah, and I know we're getting close to wrapping up. So, Kirstin, I'll just ask if Kirstin.
Now we're into this thing. You're still getting her name wrong.
Yeah, Kirstin, I know.
I wrote it nice and big on top, just to let you know.
There you go.
Lots of E's.
We're old school. We take notes. So what didn't we ask you today that you would want to share with our audience that is just important to help them not be burned out and to not break down and not to have this sacrificial life? It's just not necessary.
I mean, honestly, it's never too late to turn something around. Even if you're changing something by 1 degree, that compounds over time. Like if I was going to give you 1% of your money back and I was going to compound that every month, would you say no? Like it may not be huge, but it's a change. It's different than where you are now. And what a lot of people don't realize is like, well, it's too late to start. I'm like, you don't have to do something gigantic. You can make a 1 degree shift. Your body starts to see that you're listening. It starts to let go of some of the things that you're dealing with because it doesn't need it anymore to get your attention. There are ways to change things that you could shift. Like if you were, flying an airplane and you went 1 degree, you'd be in a completely different place hours later. So can we go deeper than that? Absolutely, for those of you who like to do things at a higher level. But I don't think most people need the drama of a huge shift because typically you can't sustain that. I'd rather see you go 1% over time and sustain it and be in a completely different place and try and go 50% and then it's too much for your system to handle. And then you slide back, you end up in shame, you start beating yourself for it, and you start spiraling. So I can help people either way. But I want them to have a system, something that's in place that they see where we want to go and what we're doing to get there. And if you want to go faster while we're on the track, we can absolutely do that. But the 1% shift is actually the piece that I want most people to understand. And I'm a high performer, so I'm always like, I could do more than that. And I'm like, but when I've done that before, I only get so far. So it's never too late. And a 1 degree shift can actually make a huge, huge difference emotionally, mentally, energetically, physically, financially.
Yeah, just ask the people who are driving the Titanic about that 1 degree shift. So they'd probably still be alive. But
huge difference.
Great. I love the way you throw in these analogies in there, and they're very visual. So, I always say what makes a really good person who can influence people, or what makes, I get asked, what makes a good hypnotist? I always say the ability to paint pictures in other people's minds that they can't see. And you do a wonderful job of that. That's not stroking your ego. That's just...
Thank you.
Well,
it is.
Kirstin.
My ego likes it.
Yeah, you're...
Okay. Well, Kirstin, you just handed us and our audience the blueprint for thriving in this season of life without burning out and sacrificing. And so we want our audience to connect with you. So tell them all the places that they can do that.
Frequency of Yes is the podcast, and it's on all the platforms, so you can look it up there. Evolveminded.com is the website. But I'm on all the social channels under my name, Kirstin Carey. So you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook and all the things. And I'm not a TikToker, though. Not my thing.
Carey with a C. We'll make sure we get all of that in the show notes so that people can connect with you. And if this episode hit home with people, please do share this. If you're running too hard, or you know people who are, if you're 50 plus, you probably are there. And there's always room for betterment. There's always room for improvement. That's why we're bringing you these shows. We want you to optimize your life, live those longer, stronger, younger, vibrant years so that you truly can live young, healthy, mentally, physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually, in every way for a lifetime. So, Kirstin,
this is a long game. We're playing the long game here. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Evolvedminded.com, the frequency of yes. Please do check those out and share this.
Thank you.
Kirstin, you definitely walked the walk and talked the talk. Appreciate everything you shared with our audience today. And hopefully everybody got something out of this that you can apply to your life and live a healthier lifestyle. In the meantime, that is a wrap. Thank you all very much. We will see you all on the next episode. Bye-bye.